Deep in the grasslands of central Brazil, the Canela tribe flourishes in their circular village 1,200 miles from Rio. The Canela's extraordinary bonding intrigued Smithsonian anthropologist Dr. William Crocker when he began studying their culture in 1957. Crocker discovered that the Canela's strength as a tribe came in part from their celebration of extramarital sex and a ritual involving multiple sexual partners.
They lived for the tribe, for the survival of the tribe, so sharing was so important that you shared all food and your bodies to keep the other people happy.
This is the story of how the Canela's remarkable sharing shaped the lives of 3 individuals over a 20-year period. Karumpe grew from a boy to a father. His aunt, Yontom, matured from a sexually active young woman to a grandmother. Her husband, Pedro, developed from a jealous young man breaking Canela tradition to a respected healer. Pedro and Yontom's marital discord threatened to divide the tribe. But the Canela believe in something they call tumpe, to make good or mend. They excel at resolving conflict. While dozens of other Brazilian tribes have splintered apart and lost their traditions, the Canela have thrived.
The answer is the mending ways. They seem to have a superior ability to solve their problems. There's this tremendous amount of communication and enjoy games and dancing and singing and extramarital sex. I think it's all the recreations that enable the hostilities to get out. I admire their culture, yes I do.
But outside influences have created jealousies that now threaten the tribe's unity. Will the Canela survive the disruptive temptations of the modern world? The Canela now number about 1,200, triple their population of 30 years ago. Helping to lead this renaissance, Raimundo Roberto Capertuk serves as a Canela ceremonial chief. He has worked with Bill Crocker for 40 years. In 1995, Raimundo visited Washington, D.C., and together they looked at film of the Canela from the 1970s.
It's been a very long relationship, and I'm particularly indebted to Raimundo for all of this remarkable information that I've gotten.
Raimundo, as a ceremonial chief, embodies the Canela's mending ways.
I am a ceremonial chief. I am chief of the whole tribe. No one has anger toward me. We mend everything. We talk everything out, calmly, diplomatically, using good words. We have compassion for everyone.
The Canela belief in sharing starts with the chief.
When a hungry person passes your house, you have to invite him in and offer him something to eat.
Sharing for the good of the tribe has helped the Canela survive over 200 years of contact with outsiders. When they first met Brazilian settlers around 1750, tens of thousands of Canela-related native peoples lived here. Smallpox decimated those who were not massacred or sold into slavery. During the middle of the 19th century, the Canela settled into a smaller area of 500 square miles that makes up their reservation today. Their contact with the outside world increased steadily over time. Bill Crocker first came to study the Canela at age 33 in 1957.
Well, 57 was, transportation was very limited. There was only a road 1/3 of the way, and the rest was just trails, and you had to go by mules and horses, and it took 3 days. But nowadays, it may take you 3 hours, or it may take you 8 hours, depending on whether you get stuck in one of the swamps.
Soon after he first arrived, the young anthropologist had to make an important decision.
And on about the second or third evening, before the entire council of elders, a man came out and said, "My wife would like to have you as her brother. We will adopt you and you can live in our house." And of course, this is the dream in a way, but I've been taught in graduate school, you don't align yourself with any family immediately, until you know what the politics is. But there were all the elders looking at me, and I couldn't say no, and so I did accept. And he led me to his family house, and there was his wife, who became my sister, thank goodness. She was a very good person to be the brother of. To this very day, I go back to that very same house.
The Canela made Crocker one of their own.
Well, they wanted me to be actually in a festival, a performer. The marching, you had to be quite serious, and you were not supposed to catch anybody's eye. I remember that I was looking around too much one time, and when I got back to my household, my nieces kidded me and said, "You weren't looking straight ahead, you weren't looking serious." So the next time, I behaved more seriously, having been shamed by my nieces.
Another anthropologist had studied them in the 30s. So the Canela knew what to expect from Bill Crocker.
The very first time I went out to cover a festival, I didn't take my camera with me because I thought this would be too much. I just took my notepad, and Al-C came along and said, "Where's your camera?"
Raimundo Roberto became Bill Crocker's most helpful guide.
He was just an absolutely outstanding person. His ability to speak Portuguese so well, because it was largely through him in the earlier days that I communicated with the tribe. He was a really effective leader with courage. He was concerned that I would get the absolute truth, because somebody later would blame him if I published something that was wrong. Yes, we're very close. I remember when he had a romance with this young woman, much younger than himself. They both knew how to write, and they would send love notes through me to each other. Yes, I've been very involved in his life.
The Canela reveled in extramarital affairs, including Pedro's young wife, Yum Tam. Today, a grandmother in her late 30s, she fondly recalls the days 20 years ago when the men of the village courted her and other married women.
Yes, I liked the men, and there were many of them. I came to have a real hunger for them.
Yum Tam is a fascinating woman to me because she was so expressive and so warm and actually outpouring and an extremely likable person.
Her husband, Pedro, stays apart from the group, a shaman and a loner.
When a person is very sick, the soul leaves the body. I cure by going to look for the soul and putting it back into the person's body.
So a shaman is bound to be off on his own, and that he might therefore not be so completely under the laws and rules and customs, and therefore get jealous, is almost to be expected.
Young Canela learned to suppress their jealousy. But Pedro ignored the rules, provoking the anger of the tribe. Karampe, on the other hand, like a true Canela, runs with the pack.
Karampe, this is really ideal young Canela man. He's conservative, he's family-oriented, and he's a good hunter. He's out there all the time hunting. He's got that alertness.
Karampe eagerly participates in the traditional ways of his people. After the harvest, with an abundance of food, the Canela stage a series of rituals in which they dance, they sing, they eat, and they have sex. This festival time, the lifeblood of their culture, continues all summer.
When I was growing up, I loved the festivals. Even today, when people talk about the festivals, I can feel the old passion in my chest.
A festival day for Karampe often starts with a log race. It's the tribal equivalent of the baton pass. In this case, the baton can weigh up to 250 pounds. Only with cooperation can the log racers complete the race. This same ability to share the load has been the key to their survival as a group. It all begins in childhood. From an early age, moving in rhythm with each other can be a matter of life and death for the Canela. Karampe is 4 years old.
Karampe wielding a knife is perfectly normal for any Canela kid. His parents let him experiment at a very young age and hate to say no. So they're intimately there all the time watching. They want their children to experience.
From infancy, the rhythms of ritual surround Canela children. These songs and dances keep their culture alive from generation to generation. The Canela sing of stars in the sky, of animals with tremendous endurance, and of plants with the power to cure. Karampe, the boy with the baby on his shoulders, leads his siblings in a game that mimics a festival dance. Karampe and his brothers imitate the hunting dance of the men in the center of the village. They sing of the animals they will catch, conjuring up magic for a good hunt. Playfulness continues into adulthood, but responsibility begins early.
They're well aware of the danger of fire, the danger of knives. In a way, they let them grow up earlier, but in a way, they don't make them grow up, that they let this childhood extend itself, full of play.
In the rare instance a child hurts himself badly, the Canela's mending ways come into play. The Canela respond to trauma by bringing the community together and dramatizing the crisis. The tale of a boy's burnt finger is acted out by his formal friend. Like godparents, formal friends provide Canela children with nurturing and guidance. Formal friends transform pain into pleasure through laughter. Another target of the drama is the mother, who beat her son for disobeying her and burning himself.
It was a disobedience that the mother punished him for, but apparently she punished him too strongly and violently, and therefore his former friends came to his help, really to shame the mother for having gone overboard.
Here, I'll blow on your finger. And don't ever do it again.
The formal friend continues her comedy, mocking the expressions of the camera crew. Outsiders make good material for laughter. But the Canela have understood that outsiders don't always share their values. They learned long ago to keep their sex life hidden from outsiders.
The outside Brazilians really are very stuffy about sex and very critical and negative, and so they simply did not let this kind of thing be known. I realized from the start that I would have to prove that I was not like those other outsiders while I was learning the language. I had an anatomy book with pictures of various parts of the body, and I would point to the arm and the leg and the penis and the vulva and try to get what they call these various things. I was trying to show that this didn't embarrass me. They began to realize I wasn't like all the other outsiders.
Bill Crocker no longer felt like an outsider after his Canela niece died.
The epitome of the time when I felt like I couldn't be taking pictures was at the death of my own niece and my own family, my sister's daughter, whom I had joked with, who had prepared food me and done everything. And she had been such a wonderful niece, and here she was dying a slow death of tuberculosis, and finally she died. It's awful to see. And she was the niece that I had joked with a lot, sort of breaking the ice and that kind of thing. So to see her die was really quite terrible.
The mourners cover the body with falcon down and red paint to honor the dead.
The belief there is that if you cry and cry and cry, that this will rid you of your feelings, your emotions, and your attachments, because their belief is you must break that emotional attachment. The warning is always to remember that you have other relatives and you've got to live for them and forget the dead.
(1979). At 8 years old, Karampe takes the initiative as a chef. The first bowl of soup goes to his little cousin, one of Yum Tom's sons. Yum Tom's sex life began as an adolescent, but soon led to a crisis during the festival's climactic Wild Boar Day. On this day, for the first time, young men who have reached puberty will go as a group for multiple partner sex. The Canela see them as a pack of wild boar. In 1975, an elder addressed the novices just before their adventure.
Tomorrow, my nephews, it will be Wild Boar Day, which means we'll divide into 2 groups. This should be a source of pride. Let your wives stay behind with the other men in the village while you go with your group out to the farm.
The group of men at the farm will meet up with women whose husbands are back in the village. The day starts with a dance line snaking round the village circle, inviting young women to join them. Yum Tom remembers that day 20 years ago.
I was dancing during Wild Boar Day, and then the men took me to the woods. There were a few other women, too.
Outside the village, at the farm site, Raimundo and several of the older men accompany the novices.
The great thing about Wild Boar Day is that it means a man has a chance to have sex with a woman who's refused him in the past. And the women have to yield, so the men will have good memories of the festival. Still, it's just this one time, not every day. So a woman can even be generous to an ugly man. Yes, the women enjoy it because it's a joyful game, an ancient and honorable custom.
But Pedro, Yum Tom's husband, has stayed behind in the village instead of going out to the farm with his group.
When I went out of the house and got close to the dancers, I saw my wife and got jealous. I went up to her and said, "Who gave you permission to be here?" I said to her, "All right, let's go." And I grabbed her by the wrist.
He grabbed me by the arm and put another hand in my armpit and took me into the house and put me in bed and wouldn't let me go. He scared the men away. Jealousy did this to him.
I wasn't jealous of them taking her away for the usual messing around. They'd already taken her for sex in the bushes once. But now they wanted her again. That got me angry. I didn't want to let them have her.
Well, how many of them were there?
There were a lot. I think around 50. I couldn't count them all.
Yum Tom's brother, Crekrere, simmers with outrage at the injustice to his sister. Her husband beat her for nothing more than taking part in a festival.
It was a bad move, taking his wife from a group of men, very bad for Pedro to have done. Not only that, even before they got back to the house, he'd hit her many times. That's why Crekrere and the rest of Yum Tom's relatives were so angry. She'd been treated so unfairly. Their sister was suffering.
Crekrere has come out to the farm to get his brothers to fight Pedro.
I, Raimundo, spoke to her brothers and told them they had to have patience. They couldn't go running back there and take matters into their own hands. The village elders could resolve this later. I am a ceremonial chief, standing here before you with authority. If you disobey me and get angry with Pedro and hurt him, then the situation will turn against you.
That evening, Raimundo spoke soothing words in the plaza, and the payment of a horse eventually pacified Yum Tom's family.
It's particularly Raimundo's role as a ceremonial chief to put down violence to prevent it, since Crekrere was so angry and had a good cause, but the cause is never carried out to violence. Now, the ultimate thing is peace, not justice.
But Pedro's jealousy remained unhealed. Sex begins early for Canela girls.
Marriage in the first place is a girl, maybe 11 or 12 or at the most 13, giving her virginity to a man, and then she's now married to that man.
Over the next few years, the girl is initiated into multiple partner sex with a men's ceremonial group. Now she is free to have trysts with anyone she wants, and her husband should not complain.
The female relatives say, okay, though your husband is our brother or our son, there's no question of fidelity to our male relative. Go ahead and have a good time sexually. People feel sorry for a girl who becomes pregnant right away because she hasn't let her hair down and suddenly she's caught instead of having lots of fun and so on.
But the nuclear family remains strong for the Canela. In his own family life, Karampe, the father, spends a lot of time with his children.
Marriage is a completely monogamous situation for raising children, and usually the children are brought up in a group of the children of several sisters in a household. And so you have all of these little cousins playing together.
Young Tom lives next to her sisters in adjacent homes on the village circle. These women look out for each other and make sisterhood a powerful force in Canela society.
So marriage is for the stability of a husband and wife being together, but then both the husband and the wife are expected to have private trysts. This is part of life, and the women can do the choosing as much as the men. But then also in ceremonial times, there was this, shall we say, joyous bonding of spouses who were not with their actual married two spouses.
For this system of extramarital sex to work, boys must be trained to obey the will of the tribe. To embark on the path of manhood, a boy learns obedience through ear piercing.
When an Indian does not have his ears pierced, he does not have respect. But whoever wears an earplug, he has a sense of humility. He goes about respectfully. He is upright.
The word for ear is hapak, and the word for hoel is kre. The word for advise is hapakre. In other words, I advised you yesterday. Yes, I ear-holed you yesterday.
At age 8, Karampe carefully observes this step toward manhood.
A girl who is a virgin, iguni, is of no use to anybody in society. So a girl is opened up and becomes useful and generous and loving and part of the joy of the society. And then in the same way, a boy has his ear pierced, and this represents an opening up to the society also. The boys never flinch, but your manhood is there at stake. You simply do not flinch.
To complete their initiation rites, carefree boys must be reborn as individuals who can put their own needs aside for those of the group. These initiates have just emerged from a long period of learning in isolation. As they re-enter daily life, they must guard their vulnerability.
When a novice comes out, he needs to be protected by the special black paint, the Jenny Pop. He hasn't been out in the sun, so the paint protects him. Because he's so light in color and defenseless, all animals like such a person and want to attack him. But once the black paint is on, he's shielded from evil.
You've got to pin down these footloose and fancy-free boys who are running in packs and shooting birds and having a good time. It's as if they're living in another world for a while, and in that other world, changes can take place to character.
The uruku, the red paint, is just like a medicine, so that they don't get lazy or go around daydreaming. With uruku and black paint on, they become very strong.
As they approach adulthood, the Canela will experience the intimacy of sex together, too. Traditionally, women who participated in multiple partner sex received a prize of meat to take home to their households.
The young women went along with the group for sex, and then the hunters brought game. They divided up the meat and gave the women some to take home to their mothers. Then the mothers would encourage their daughters to go out with the men.
To become a man, one must become a hunter.
Hold on to it, Schecter.
Schecter celebrates his achievement with body paint. Karumpe, the husband and father, hunts full-time.
Yes, I'm always hunting, supporting my family all the time, and my in-laws. I catch all kinds of game. Armadillos. One time in Mato Seco, I killed an anaconda. We baked it and ate it.
Bill Crocker has heard some good hunting stories over the years.
Francisco Romão went after some animal into one of the streams, and the anaconda bit him and caught his right hand. This anaconda snake was twirling itself around him, but he did manage with the machete in his left hand to kill the anaconda snake. This is a constrictor snake, of course. Dangerous, yes.
The women back in the village sing of animals the hunters may encounter.
I think it was my brother Francisquinho put his hand in a hole to get at an armadillo and was bitten by a rattlesnake. Any of these armadillos are very good to eat. An armadillo could be a feast for an entire family because each would have a little bit. And the flavoring of the juice, the broth, that would go a long way to putting flavor into the rice or the manioc.
Finding the anteater is the easy part. Extricating it can take a lot longer.
I think you better smoke him out.
We have to think of hunting as the successor to being a warrior and fighting. Yes, hunting is very manly, and the hunter can get any of the women he wants to in private trysts. And of course, the woman will ask for a bit of meat each time. That's to be expected. And the hunters have big advantages with the women, yes.
The hunters distribute the meat among themselves. Once they bring it home, the women control it.
Relative power, the balance between the sexes, has been very interesting to me because in so many Amazonian tribes, the men completely outpower the women.
Like all Canela men, when Carampe married, he moved into his wife's house. Here, his grandmother-in-law rules.
Women are, relatively speaking, quite respected, and the women really rule the roost in the domestic situation, whereas their brothers and uncles come as visitors, and they quite considerably dominate their husbands.
As the senior woman of the household, the grandmother distributes the food. Today's meal, manioc root and fish stew. As the festival season moves into full swing, the Canela distribute meat to all the households of the tribe. Here, Carampe, at age 8, selects his cuts to take home. 20 years later, Carampe still gets his share. No one is left out. For the Canela, to survive and prosper means to share. Sharing one's body for sex was also the norm. Sexual generosity during the festivals has been a cornerstone of their ability to bond and remain together as a tribe.
In the evenings, I go after the girls and end up with a woman other than my wife. I want this in the festivals, and so I have sex with her and paint her black. I like this way very much.
The black paint serves as a memento of the liaison. For the Canela, sex celebrates a spirit of giving and openness central to their tribal identity. Many men of a ceremonial society had sex with one woman, one man at a time, one after another, in a secluded area in the woods, away from the waiting group. Historically, Canela men and women have relished this.
I loved all the men. They were so handsome in their wristlets and other decorations. They were so beautiful, and there were so many of them.
All the men who go and have their time and the women who know them this way, this is a kind of bonding act. And they also know each other very intimately, and everybody knows what everybody does, how well, how fast, how liquid, how whatever you like. And so people's characters are extended in this way. Everybody knows what everybody is capable of doing.
During the fish festival, we had 6 women for our group. That's a lot of women, and many men had sex with them. All the men were satisfied, and none of the women were worn out. It gave me great joy.
During the festival, when there is plenty to eat, there is lots of activity. The young people fool around and sing all night long. The men run with the logs. Everybody is generous and no one speaks badly of anyone else. It's really good.
The Canela value discipline and restraint as well as sexual liberty. In this sacred festival, the Pepkahak, the singers, attend a kind of religious retreat. For 3 months, they abstained from sex and eating meat. These practices of self-discipline, called restrictions, serve as a virtuous example for the whole tribe.
It had to be entrancing for them, and I think if you look at those people's faces, and they are under a semi-trance, the hypnotism, self-hypnotism of the music, it's a kind of prayer to bring the power of these certain respected animals and plants to the people. There were certain animals that gave you powers. You got strength from the anaconda, and you got endurance from the armadillo, and you got wiliness from the parrot. And so you would bring these strengths and powers from the wild into the tame to help themselves and their people this way.
In another festival, the whole village participates in a mending ritual. They act out a confrontation between two groups, a historic rift that once threatened the unity of the tribe. The ceremonial chiefs in the center serve as referees who choreograph a truce. Leadership mends through compromise.
This is our way. Food and sex restrictions, ceremonial chiefs of the tribe, and extramarital sex. These are the 3 ways that define us and our lives. There are people who have a great deal of jealousy, but that isn't the Canela way. The law of the Canela is to let one's wife go and play, have sex with the men of the other groups. But some Canela are trying to take over the ways of the white people.
Pedro and Yumtam lived peacefully for a while, but then Pedro's old jealousy resurfaced. Yumtam remembers what happened when she returned from one episode of sex with a men's group.
When I came home, my husband Pedro was angry. In fact, he was so angry that he left and went to another village. My father-in-law wouldn't let me go out in the street anymore. I had many lovers who were seeking me out, but my husband's family kept me in. I wanted to have a good time, but they wouldn't let me dance. I wanted to be happy and full of joy, but they wouldn't let me. Still, when Pedro went away, I missed him, but he didn't miss me because he was always angry. I was left crying and hurt. Time passed, and he forgot about things, and we got together again, and I was really happy. But when Pedro kept me in, I was angry at him because I wanted to go with the group of men. I liked the other men.
A few years after the Wild Boar Day conflict, the old differences boiled over again in a midnight scuffle between Pedro and Yumtam's family.
It was a fight, and everybody was rolling on the ground. Pedro had been treating her very badly. When a son-in-law is this way, nobody can stand him.
The next morning, the mending ways come from an unexpected quarter. Karampe and the other children of Yumtam's household reenact the trauma of the night before. It's healing through drama all over again. This time with the children showing their elders just how foolish they look.
The children did this to shame the parents, to stop them from doing this again. This play fighting was a mending thing.
20 years later, Pedro and Yamtam live together in peace. His possessiveness has mellowed with age, but Pedro's jealousy, an exception in the 70s, has now become the rule for Karampay's generation in the 90s.
So even if I just talk to some girl, my wife will notice and say, "What are you talking to her about?"
Material change from the outside has seeped in slowly. First, scissors and toothpaste. Then nylon shorts and bras. Now, the Canela have expanded into large-scale farming. The tribe owns a truck, and instead of going hungry part of the year, some Canela have a surplus of rice and manioc they can sell. But a cash economy doesn't mesh with their traditional sharing.
These days, we all need money to buy soap, to buy cloth, to buy sandals, to buy tobacco, to buy salt. And there are so many other things we need these days.
For young people, the concern for possessions has also led to jealousy. And jealousy like Pedro's, expanded to a whole generation, means the end of multiple partner sex play.
Yes, it's been lost. The custom has been lost. I miss it. But what can be done?
In Canela society, the marriage bond did not have to include sexual jealousy. Cultural conditioning put public responsibility above even the most private of emotions.
This group sex certainly works to bond people. It tends to create joy. There is great joking and teasing and games going on all the time. So I think it's not just bonding, it makes for a tremendous amount of fun.
Bill Crocker's work has helped to keep the Canela culture alive.
I remember the chief said, "Tell Gubu," that was my Canela name, "anything that he wants to know, because it is only through his books, his paper," he would say, "that our grandchildren will know about us." I was certainly by that time the tribal historian, and to this very day, young people will come to me and ask me about certain things they don't know, and I do know. They're not going to lose most of their beliefs, and they're not going to become just like Brazilians for a long, long time, if ever.
Back in 1975, the elders made marks in the sand, counting up how many pieces of meat to cut. 4 years later, they called Karampay's name from a written list. Now, he must enter a barbed wire enclosure to make sure a horde of young men doesn't turn it into a free-for-all. But the Canela still distribute their meat to everyone in the tribe during the festivals. Today, the games of the children still imitate the adult rituals that hold the tribe together.
Look at the American society. In our games, win at any price. In lawsuits, win at any price. They have a basic core of softer values, as not as adversarial values.
After almost 200 years of outside contact, the Canela values of sharing for the good of the tribe are likely to continue. But the ceremonial trading of spouses, for the time being, is gone, and even casual affairs are fading.
Now it's dying out. Trysts are coming to an end. When this lovemaking ends, we all just become like the white people.
For the Canela, Karampe and his generation carry the hope of the tribe's survival.